Hello, welcome back to Sapling Tarot. My name is Imogen and welcome to another episode of The Cards We're Dealt, my series about tarot and neurodivergence. This episode's guest is the wonderful Jessica Starr from Jessica and the Moon here on YouTube. What an absolute treat, gem, wonder of a guest. Let's get into it. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm an astrologer and a tarot reader and an animist witch based in Wales in the UK, which is my ancestral homeland. I have got a diagnosis of autism and I also have ADHD, although that is undiagnosed currently. And I'm not sure what else to say.
No, that's totally fine. Yeah, it's the same for me with the professional autism diagnosis. And a family member went and got an ADHD diagnosis, but because the ADHD diagnosis takes so much paperwork, which is hilarious as a concept, we went through it together. And so I saw all of the questionnaires and I was just like, okay, well, this is new. This is not something I'd thought about before, but now I'm like, okay, so there's just a lot of it kind of all mixed in together.
I didn't even think that I would have, I was pretty sure when I went, I did a private diagnosis because doctors and stuff is one of the things that really triggers me. So I went through, I paid privately to do the autism diagnosis. And it was during then that they were like, there's something else going on here. And they did a screening for ADHD, but it wasn't properly part of the official diagnosis kind of thing. And I was quite surprised because I hadn't really seen that in me as much as the autism. So, but then when I then started watching loads of ADHD type content and stuff on YouTube and reading into it a little bit more, I was like, yes, okay, this does make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I think also autism struggles with having a lot of stereotypes and stigma attached to it, but I think ADHD does very much as well. So I think of the kids I went to school with who had ADHD diagnoses, and they were just bouncing off the walls and, just kind of generally causing mayhem and that kind of thing. And that wasn't really my experience. And then I learned about the kind of inattentive side of it, so the quieter, more internal side of it, and I was like, oh, not everyone has that. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm with you. It had never occurred to me. I'd always almost pitched myself as, because I think neurodivergent people tend to sort of cluster. I'd seen myself as being quite different from my ADHD friends, and there were certain things that I was just like, okay, well, that's not like me because I like things like that. And then so I'd kind of categorized things quite neatly. Yeah. And then I was just like, oh, there's this whole other thing that is less obvious, less external, more of that internal thing. And I was like, gotcha.
Yeah.
Here we are.
It was funny when in the assessment, when they say one of the things on the DSM-5 and they're talking about, and the same as they use in the UK, but they use the black and white thinking. And I'm like, no, I don't do black and white thinking. Yeah. That doesn't sound like me at all. And then they're like, but what about in this? And I'm like, well, yes, because obviously that is the right way. I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I do have a little bit of that. But yeah, it's... when they did the screening for ADHD, they said that I have combination ADHD, so inattentive and hyperactive, most likely. I haven't got the, and I was like, whoa, But then thinking back to childhood and stuff, it's yes, I used to do a lot of kind of a lot of physical things to try and get that energy kind of focused in a more focused way. But I actually think that the combination has worked out. It's hard, isn't it? Because you can't see what your experience would have been without that. So, but I actually feel I don't recognize myself in being some of my friends who've got ADHD who really struggle with certain things. And I find I can do some of those things, or at least some of the time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the whole spiky cognitive profile thing. And so I come from a family that is just absolutely fizzing with various different kind of neurodivergences. And to a point, that's useful because it's we speak a sort of common language, but then, so my mum is ADHD as well, but we had a conversation the other day about needing to get things done and the advice of, having a to-do list and having apps with reminders and stuff like that. And I was just like, yeah, but you'll see the thing go off and you just won't necessarily do the thing. Yeah. And I was like, I can be it can be like really important, and I'll feel like kind of there's a train coming towards me and my feet will not let me get out of the way because there's just this kind of inertia thing that sets in. And my mum was just like, God, that sounds awful. I was just like, do you not?
Yeah.
Well, there's a difference. And it's the same sort of diagnostic thing, but it's the spiky, the differences between us all, so you can't make assumptions, I suppose. And yeah, the rigid thinking thing is a big one, because I joke about that being like, when I was younger, definitely, but now as an adult, I've had X number of decades of learning the hard way that life is not black and white, and that it is very grey, and that you kind of just have to deal with that. And so I look at some things in kind of maybe neurotypical society and I go, but you know that that's not true, right? Like that's not, you can't always neatly separate things, as much as that would be very lovely and kind of tidy and stuff, but that's not true. But then, like you say, you'll have something and be like, oh, but that's wrong, or that's right. And I'll be like, and I am, and it comes across as real arrogant. It's like, but I don't see the alternative, and it can be, it's real tricky.
I've sort of learned to be like, that is, to sort of go into that, like, this is true for me. You know, I try to be really clear that it's just, I'm just talking from my perspective. This is definitely the truth for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's a really beautiful thing with the kind of spirituality that we share is, I think it's a really beautiful exercise in not knowing and just kind of having to breathe through not having kind of evidence or proof or being able to kind of show receipts for something, and that it's all within you and it's all about your perspective. And I think, like, tarot particularly, the way that tarot works, I couldn't tell you what it is exactly that makes tarot work, whether you're talking kind of self-reflection tarot or messages from spirit, or like, I couldn't tell you that, and I have to be okay with that. I have to not get defensive, I have to not get stressed, I have to just breathe through that. And I think that's been such a boon for that rigid thinking thing of just letting it be how it is.
Yeah, I think as well, that's why I didn't, like, I only got diagnosis in my early 40s, so that's been fairly new. I was pretty sure a few years prior to that as well, but because I was always kind of like weird anyway, because of all the spiritual stuff, and like to me, like, the kind of other world has always just been as tangible as the physical world. And so I was like, is it just that? So for a long time I thought, I'm just weird because of that, you know? And so it was like, okay, so there is a label for this now, potentially, with getting diagnosis and things like that, but that doesn't fully explain although I think there is quite a lot of crossover as well with people who do have quite a rich spiritual life and like inner life with different forms of neurodivergence as well. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, like, am I weird because of being autistic? I was like, I don't think so. I think that's also something as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I think weird in a good way.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah, very pro weird over here, right? I always forget that I have to clarify that as well. Of like, oh yeah, I don't mean it in a disparaging or mean way. I mean it in a, isn't it wonderful? Like, it would be, yeah, just kind of so hard to get kind of interested in anything. And like, yeah, the idea of being, I don't know, cool or normal or stuff isn't necessarily the kind of stuff that like gets me out of bed in the morning. So I'm like very here for the weird. And yeah, I'm the same. Like, I grew up in Somerset, but also in Ireland, and so yeah, I mean, it's just it's kind of a funny thing to explain to people who didn't necessarily have that kind of childhood or upbringing and stuff, that it's just kind of normal to. Well, certainly for me, and like my flavour of weirdness and my flavour of ingesting stories, and like I was talking to someone the other day about like just wanting to go and like try and find fairy rings to jump into, and I'm just like, Imogen, why would you do that? But also, like, I just believed it with my whole entire heart and being, and so of course we've ended up here. It was
it's like one of those things. It's like, well, I know this is real. Like, I've never doubted that this is real because it is actually real.
Yeah.
Yeah, although like my family are not particularly like spiritual or religious. Like my dad kind of is, but my in Wales is like quite a strong like Christian, but like Protestant Christian culture,
Yeah.
especially going back like my grandparents kind of era and more. And so like when I was about 5, I was like, right, I want to go to church. And like my parents had never really gone to church. So I was like, I want to go to church because in my head, that was where like the people who also talked about spirituality, like people who also realized that there's more than just this stuff, that's where they were going to be. And so I like insisted. And my dad was like, yeah, okay, well, I'll take you to church. And so we went, and it's like it wasn't quite what I was like looking
Yeah.
for, obviously, but it was also kind of cool in some ways as well. You know, there was some nice bits about it, and it was good to see that there's like adults who still
Mhm.
like who do have a spiritual life. Yeah. So even though like I know, and especially in the States, I know lots of people have like a lot of trauma around like religion. Like yeah, here in Wales, like you're saying, like in Somerset it's similar, and definitely in Ireland as well. It's like having a Christian faith doesn't exclude you from also having these other
Yeah.
kind of knowings of this sort of stuff. It's not like an exclusive situation. It's like it's all kind of part of having a spiritual life, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I did. I lived in Ireland for a bit and went to Catholic school, and that was a lot because I've just always really cared about faith, and without like I've never been a member of a religion, like an organized religion. But I've really cared about and really respected people with faith, and so it was the idea that there were people that were just kind of going along with it because you need to go along with it, and that's what you do as a community. You know, you get up and you go to it, but you don't necessarily believe in it. And then going to school, it was the idea that you all went to mass, and I was just like, oh, but I don't believe in the thing. And so to my 11-year-old brain, I was like, well, that's more respectful if I don't go to the thing that you hold deeply sacred, this big ritual transubstantiation. You know, I don't want to be messing with that because it's not my faith, it's not my culture. And they tore me to shreds. And I was like, oh, so it's more respectful. And this is where the spirituality and the autism the thing just crash into each other. And you go, so in your mind, it is more respectful for me to do the thing and not believe it than it is to remove myself from the situation out of respect. And so things like the confession and all of that, to go and to just say the words and do the thing and not.
Yeah. And isn't that wild? Like, yeah.
It's still like
How
it's so many
many
years
people are
later.
doing it who also don't believe it, and they're just doing it to be part of that community. And it's just like,
Yeah.
whoa, loads of you are here, coming here every week and doing all of this stuff, and you don't believe in any of it. It's just like, find that so wild.
Yeah, it's just yeah, like it still just kind of messes with me that is a thing, and like it's like learning about religions. Like it was probably one of my like early special interests, which is so hilariously nerdy, but like world religions and stuff. And so learning about things like the body and blood and all that kind of stuff, and being like kind of oh, okay, that's metal as fuck, like that. Wow. That's like hardcore religion. But then finding out that there were people that were kind of doing the thing but not believing it. And then also the people that didn't know the stories. And I always thought that was really sad. Because like I went to, or I got sent to Bible club, kind of like what would you like Sunday school Bible club type thing. And I was just like, well, it's story time, isn't it? Just what a great thing. And yeah, like knowing the stories and having opinions about the stories was like not the thing. And it was talking about like the one true religion, and I was just like, oh, but I know about Hinduism and Buddhism, and they're like that. And then like, sort of was like, but was Jesus a communist? Because he was about like Sharon, and it was just like Imogen's not allowed to come back to Bible club.
Brilliant. Yeah, I actually used to teach Sunday school when I was like in my late teens, and like I would have those conversations with the kid, because it's like, of course we're going to talk about this stuff because obviously this is not the only religion, and there are, I think I was lucky in that the church that I went to, even though it was like a Methodist church, they weren't very like, it wasn't so much you have to do this particular way kind of thing. So it did. Yeah, I love the stories of it and the way that we can kind of think about things and all of the metaphor and all that kind of stuff. It's like, this is so interesting. And I love talking to other people about spirituality, because it's like, there's no other opportunity to do that because there's just not that availability in kind of like modern secular society. Like this was in, I suppose, like in the 80s, you know, as I was like growing up. So yeah, it wasn't like part of the culture to have those sort of conversations. So I thought it was really cool to be able to have somewhere to, and like, yeah, now I'm like, yeah, it wasn't like in alignment, but like I knew then as well, this is not exactly it, but it's good, you know, like it's fine. And yeah, I didn't feel like I shouldn't be, like, I suppose I was lucky. And if it'd been like a Catholic situation, or even my friend growing up, she used to go to like an Anglican church, and they were still a little bit more like, you know, you have to do things a certain way, a little bit more this. I think it was just like a good combination, a good fit for me with a particular place that we ended up.
Because it's the people, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's the how, like you see it all over the world in terms of there being kind of limited source material, but infinite ways to enact that upon the world. And you can go like, you know, I don't live too far away from Edinburgh, and there's like huge like gay churches, and that is just as like, well, I mean, to me in my life, I would say that's a more valid interpretation than some of the other, in like the other direction interpretations of the source material and stuff. And so it's about the people and the space that is created that means that you could have your stories and the conversations, and yeah, essentially that kind of excuse to talk to people about this stuff. That I joke about tarot being like, because I'm shit at small talk, and so you get straight into how's your relationship with your mother within seconds, and I'm like, this is what I was built for.
Yeah. And that's why one of the things I loved about tarot, because I was always receiving information for people. And then it wasn't until I had tarot that I had this like medium that I could then use as a conversation to have with people, you know, like, so it's like, now I can tell you this stuff because it's like, well, it's the cards that are telling you it and not me, you know, I can just this and this and this, you know, and yeah, it acts as a really great medium for letting those messages come through.
Absolutely. And like essentially sort of like just props for having those deep conversations. And a thing is like having a deep conversation with someone when you're walking. So you're both facing in the same direction next to each other. If you're in the car or something, it's so much easier.
Yeah, and
for a lot of people.
Look at, yes, exactly. So you're not like just staring at each other. You've got that whole like, we're both looking at this thing. And it also gives the conversation, like you say, small talk's just so excruciating. But then if you've got like I'm fine when I've got a framework, you know, so it's like in a tarot reading, this is what this is what happens. So it's like, I'm fine now because I know how to be in this situation. Yeah. It's like small talk is so random, isn't it? So it's like, yeah, having like a tarot reading, I used to like doing like the in-person first of all, and like now I do them online, and I also really enjoy that. In fact, I do quite a lot of the tarot readings I do now for clients are like pre-recorded videos, so I will do the reading as a video and then just send them that video, and like it's a little bit like, it's obviously different because like there's a nice back and forth sometimes when you're, you know, like when you're doing it live, but I also find that in a way they kind of get more value because it's like it all just comes out together, and there's not that kind of like stop and start, because like, yes, you know, a classic autism is like, I don't like being interrupted if I'm in the flow of what is going on. So it's like, no, I can just kind of go with the whole thing of it.
Yeah, because I was talking to someone fairly recently about how YouTube is such like perfect autistic communication, because we can just like info dump for like 40 minutes and then upload, and then someone can do like a response or a written comment or whatever, and it's just like monologuing at each other, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and like you don't have to interact, like you don't have to answer the comments straight away as well, so you can be like, right, I've done that, and it's like, now I need a little bit of a rest, and then like a couple of days later you can be like, right, now I'll have a look what the comments was, and start to interact again. Yeah, I love that.
No, I feel that like the delay, and so you can kind of recharge and then come back with a bit more energy and that sort of thing. Like I always used to talk about how I'm probably, in many, many ways, I'm built for living in 2025 because I'm very grateful for the internet. I don't leave my house an awful lot. This is how I talk to people. But I move at a pace much more like using the post or like pigeons or something. Like, just give me a minute and I will get back to you. I will do my best to get back to you. But like, it will just take me a minute. Imagine that a pigeon is involved, and then that's the kind of speed that I'm operating at.
Do you find that varies then though? Because like I find that I need that like a lot of the time, and then sometimes I'll just be on this kind of like manic, maybe that's like the kind of the the kind of more the ADHD coming in there with it. Like it's like I want to get everything done so quickly, and I'm going to just do this, like shoot through loads of things, and then it's like, right, and now I need to lie down.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. That is my biggest like challenge, certainly in like adult life, has been finding how to do that without it like punishing me deeply afterwards, like in my body, and how to do that and kind of get the things done that I want to get done without, I mean, truthfully, like burning out, because I've done that too many times at this point, and now each time it happens, it's taking such a chunk out of me that I don't think I'm getting back. So it's like sort of the, what's it called, like skill regression and stuff. It's like, it's quite scary. And so I love that feeling of the, oh, I woke up today and I feel like I can genuinely do anything. And I can blast through my to-do list. I can start a whole load of projects. I might even finish a few projects. But like, I need to watch myself, and I need to make sure I'm like eating enough and like drinking enough and getting enough sleep, even when I'm in it, because otherwise I've done it too many times now and my body does not forgive me anymore. It's like you had your years.
I don't remember to do those things, do you? Because you're so like just like focused on what it is. There's like, oh yeah, now it's been like 9 hours and I haven't even gone to the loo or drunk anything or eaten anything for that whole time. Yeah. I think having kids really like made me back into my body, because it was like I'm attending to their needs. I had to like get better with being interrupted, because like I still find that really difficult. But like obviously like toddlers, babies, they're interrupting you all the time. And now like my children are like 15 and 11 now, so like they know not to interrupt me at certain things when I'm doing certain things, but still it's helped me, because it's like I can interrupt myself a little bit better now, but it still is not easy when you've just got that like kind of I want to just get everything done. It's not even I want to, it's like I must. It's like you just compelled, isn't it? It's not like you're not choosing that. That's just like that is how it is now.
Yeah, it's what's happening, and you know, you either get on board or you get out of the way kind of thing. It's like I can't, and it's the challenge I think of living with people as well, is that sometimes the moment strikes you at a time that is deeply like socially inappropriate to do something, and having to swallow that or have conversations with people where it's just like, look, if this happens and I need to deep clean the kitchen at 3 a.m, are we going to be able to manage this? Because otherwise I'm simply never going to do that unless I can do it when it strikes me. And it sounds so like petty and childish, just like I won't clean unless I want to clean, and I will want to clean. It will happen at some point, but you have to let it happen.
Yeah, it needs to like trigger that this is the thing that needs to be done. Yeah. I think I'm lucky like that we've kind of set up our lives so that we can, like my children are home educated as well, so it's like we haven't got, I try and avoid as much as possible like having to be places at exact times, because it's just I find that really, really stressful. And so we can kind of, you can kind of like flow with your own energy rather than being dictated to by like, and I like lots of people are obviously self-employed, which I am. And then, it's like, I have to, if I don't live my life like this, then I'm not in a good place. Whereas the way that I have things set up, it's like, now I feel like everything is okay, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things with like late diagnosis or like adult diagnosis, is so much of, I mean, I can only speak to the autistic diagnostic process, but I think for a lot of these things, they're geared up for kids. And so it's talking about like what you struggle with, what you can't do. And it's just like, if you've made it to adulthood, you've found a way. And so, you build a life that can accommodate these sorts of things. Like the lives we've built are so tailored to exactly what we need, and you know, that's an immense privilege that we've been able to do that. But it's then when you go and you interact with the outside world, so like you say, an absolutely definitive time that you have to be somewhere, and like I don't drive, so that's on me, and that's on British public transport. How I ever get anywhere is an absolute miracle, but it's like that thing of in your bubble, particularly because so much is like of the diagnostic process is like deficit based, and it's like kind of, what do you struggle with, what makes your life awful, that kind of like really negative thing. You're just like, but I've got to this point, and how do you think I got here without having scaffolding and structures, but like flexible structures made of bamboo that like that can ebb and flow and move and change with what I need them to be. And yeah, you fling me into an office 9 till 5, or you'll see the autism. It'll be running off of me. But day to day, we make it work for us. And like, I love it's kind of the idea of you like home educating your kids, that is how life can be. Because I think that so many kids that kind of, I mean, just kids across the board, we're so pickled in what the world has to be and what we have to be like, and that there is no give. And so I think that that's unbelievably important, that that's something that you give your kids. And I think that that's something that so many people would benefit from, just being kind of pickled in for just a little bit, to know that it's okay to be, that some days you can do things and some days you can't, and
it's like normalize that. Because like I know like in schools now there's a lot more awareness of differences with people, but there's still like the way that the school is set up is still just not helpful for that. The system itself is not a helpful system for people who need, well, humans. It's not
exactly.
I knew that, like, they've been home educated from the very beginning. I knew that I wasn't going to send them to school.
Like, I am yet to meet an autistic adult that was not a traumatized autistic child. If there's any possibility that we could maybe within a couple of generations find out what that looks like, I'm all for it. And if they have support going out into the world as a normal human needs, then it's not de-skilling them, it's protecting them just for a while before the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you're like planting a tree, you don't just plant it and then go, right, you know, that's fine. Like they put little things around it, don't they? Like to make sure that it's like properly, like it's established its roots and it's got, you know, and then it's, once it's strong enough to deal with that, then it'll actually do better than it would do if you were just like, no, you must from the very moment you're born, you know, survive by
your own kids.
It's, I can see why people say it, and a lot of the time is because they've had experiences where they haven't had their needs met, and so they're like, why should I give that to somebody else, you know? And even like myself, when bringing up my children, there's been times where it's been really sad because it's like, that wasn't my experience, and so you kind of almost grieve. Like I was grieving my own, not like having a different sort of upbringing than I'm trying to give them, you know? So yeah, it brought up a lot of stuff, definitely.
It's an interesting fork in the road, I think, when you come up against things like that, because people tend to fall into kind of one of two camps, which is that this thing happened to me, therefore it should happen to other people. So I think about it in terms of like student debt stuff in America. So every time it comes up as a topic of student debt forgiveness, there will be older people being like, well, I had to pay off my hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of student debt, so like everyone should have to do that. And then there are other people going, I had to pay off tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. Thank God these kids maybe won't have to. And that has played out so many times in my life that I've seen people in similar circumstances going one of two ways. And I think you're exactly right that you can absolutely grieve that wasn't your experience, but you are not therefore going, didn't do me any harm, kind of, and then perpetuating the cycle of whatever the thing is. It's a really interesting kind of binary moment for people and their psychology.
Yeah, it is. It does bring up a lot of stuff. And it brought up a lot of stuff for my mum as well, because like seeing me and my sister like bring up our children quite differently from how we were, like that was quite triggering for her, because I think she just genuinely didn't think that they would, like at that time, like I was born in the late 70s, so it was just very normal to bring your children up that way. And so it was like, this is the way you're supposed to do it kind of thing. So you tried to do it how you were supposed to do it. So I think she's found it quite sad in some ways as well, being like, I have a very different relationship with my daughter like than I have with my mum.
Yeah,
I think she does. She sees that now and thinks that it could have been quite different, which is also sad, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's those things about like when things are just kind of like passed down without people engaging with them critically, and that's not a criticism. It's most people didn't have the option or the time or the capacity or the knowledge to be able to. But then as soon as someone changes something, it's like it ripples all the way back, particularly people that are still living, but I think just like all the way back. Like I have a cousin who we had quite sort of similar but weird, we're like of an age, and we had kind of complementary kind of teenage childhood experiences of being that kind of cycle breaker thing of where everything just came to a head, and we were both just like, so all of this stuff has kind of trickled down and landed on us, and now we're the ones that have to deal with this. And the shockwaves that sent back through the whole family of different ways to deal with things. And now she has a beautiful little baby girl, and I have the most faith in anyone I've ever met that she will be an unbelievable mother, because she's taken everything from our collective, our joint family, and then also her own stuff and her partner's stuff, and kind of alchemized this into the most incredible space for her little girl to grow up. And she was, I suppose, one of the first people I've known where I've just been like, you were made for this. And not in like a sort of gross way, but just in a like, you've already made a huge difference in the world by doing everything you've done, but this is something amazing. And I think that about the way that, I mean, obviously, I only know you online. This is a deeply parasocial relationship, but from what I know of the way that you've raised your kids, I feel that about that really powerful impact that has. And like I think about it of people in education as well, but that kind of ripple thing is unbelievably powerful. Someone that goes, okay, we've done it like this until this point, and now, no, I say no.
Yeah, it's funny because that's been a pattern for me all through my life. It's like, this is how everybody's always done it. It's like, yeah, but that's not going to be the way that I'm going to do it. So it's like, I'm always like, I'm going to do this way, and then this like this. And I think, I'm not sure if that is like one of that, like autism kind of like black and white sort of thinking things, is like, it's like, just because this is the way it's always been done, that's not a good enough reason for me to like carry on doing it. And like you said, it does send a shockwave, but it's just so healing, I think, like for everybody. Like for me, I'm like learning it as I go along, but I hope like with my children, if they have children, that they will have like even a better foundation to kind of start from.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. It's the building blocks that you are, like after kind of like smashing down this lineage of kind of shit that has just been, this is how we do things, all right. And then now you're starting and you're laying something that's a lot more, like kind of kind and holistic, and seeing humans as inherently worthy, and like all of that kind of stuff that is apparently deeply radical politics, which I find really funny. Look at us being so totally radical.
Yeah. And I suppose like that comes back in with like a lot of the religion stuff as well. It's like, if you believe that humans have come in wrong, which is like what a lot of Christianity is like, you've come in with original sin kind of thing, then you're going to approach that very differently than if you believe humans have come in right, and it's like, I'm definitely coming from that perspective of like, you're great as you are. We don't need to like be trying to bash the original sin out of you.
Yeah, God, yeah. And like I think particularly the animist viewpoint of being part of something so much larger but not hierarchical, I think is, because I think because I followed the kind of the school system and whatever, so I was kind of pushed down the very like scientific rational route for like a long time, but then I was kind of finding my way back to a more spiritual sort of place, and then I became disabled, and the kind of inner work that I had to do in order to see myself as worthy of existing was what. So it's like people get funny about talking about politics in this kind of space, but it's like my politics and my spirituality are one thing, is that I believe that everyone is inherently worthy and worthy of care and support and love and all of these things that, again, deeply radical, very hippy-dippy, all of this stuff, but it's like, they are the same thing. My politics comes from the fact that I believe that I'm just as valuable as a tree and just as valuable as, you know, a rock or a river or, you know, any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that is how I managed to be okay with this, maybe even the strong phrase, but like to manage.
Yeah.
Not being able to be that capitalist cog in the machine and having that big kind of tower of it all crashing down and being like, okay, I need to find a way of looking at things that is different.
Yeah, because there's so much pressure. Like, if humans are like this individualistic like thing, then there is like we've put ourselves in this weird like place of power in the world, and it's like that is not where it's like you can really take the pressure off. And yeah, when you realize that we're just woven in with everything else, it's like, you know, realize how kind of like small we are, not in a like a derogatory way, but just in a like that's the correct perspective. Kind of. I remember seeing a meme where they showed like trees that had like grown around different things, and they were all kind of like misshapen, like, and it was saying like, if we saw people like this, like, we don't look at those trees and go, oh, you're wrong, you're a bad tree, you know. We're just like, oh, it's gone like that. How clever. Like, it's gone around these different, like some of them had like big, like almost like fences and things inside them, and it's grown around them and stuff. And I was just like, yeah, because that's exactly what it's like. Like, that's why we are like we are, because we've adapted and we've grown around the things that have been our experiences in our lives. And it's not that there's like anything wrong. It's just, it's the perspective that's wrong. It's the way of looking at it. It's like, it's if you think this is how it should be, then that's when it gets messed up. Whereas like, this is what it is. And we can just allow that. And like you say, it shouldn't be a radical viewpoint to think that, but it does seem to be like not common, unfortunately. I don't know, I say that, like, I know, like, I'm really lucky with like what I do now, where I'm working with a community of people who have a very similar worldview, and that is, I find that so helpful, because it's just like having that reflected back as well. It's like, yes, I'm not just this lone weirdo, there are lots of other weirdos who also have these feelings about how things are and how things could be. And yeah, even though things are kind of like deeply broken at the moment, it still makes me really hopeful, because it's like we're like on the cusp of something now, where we're moving towards this place where things will be better. But yeah, it's probably going to be not immediately, so it's going to take a while.
Yeah, I think like the growing pains and the adjustment are significant. But I agree, and I feel the same about the community you've built, and kind of the bits of community that I've sort of found with people that, I suppose it's essentially kind of people with similar values. So even people who maybe their day-to-day practice looks different, but the cornerstones, like the bedrock, is still the same. And it's a really interesting thing that it's like, we're so small, but because we're not thinking about it in terms of being individuals, that doesn't make us powerless. Because I think that some people, when you talk about being really small and kind of in the grand scheme of things of like time and ecology and all of these things, people can feel quite like, well, then kind of, why does anything matter? And it's just like, oh, but we are part of something huge, and that in itself is powerful. And that's where because the individualism thing, it can be so, it can take away so much power, I think, as well. While it can kind of make you feel good, sort of, but only generally by squashing other people. Whereas if you see yourself as part of something else, then I think that shift, and like the neurodivergent thing, different people claim disabled or not. And like, so I'd see ADHD, autism, ADHD, a lot of neurodivergence as being disabilities and being disabling. I only really started to claim the word disabled like less than 10 years ago. And that finding disabled community was the best thing, because it was like, okay, so individually we might feel like we can do fuck all, but together, and we can help each other in these very specific kind of ways, and it's deeply powerful. And I think that about your community as well, is and because of the internet and the global nature of it, people who've never met another person that feels the way that we do feels held and seen in your community. And I think that that's unbelievably powerful.
Yeah, like people who don't find themselves, because that's like, I mean, that's the whole thing about diversity as well, is there's like people, when you see if you don't see representations of yourself, it feels really lonely. And so then when you actually like meet people, even if it is online, you know, like I don't see it as being like not in real life kind of thing. It's online, but it's just a different medium for communication. But when you see that, it's like, it just makes you feel less lonely. And yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because it's different from being like that cog in the machine, like seeing yourself as being this part of a whole universal kind of ecosystem. That's completely different from being a cog in a machine, because cogs all are kind of the same, aren't they? And they're being put to work. Whereas like the way I see it is like we've come in with specific skills perhaps, or like our life experiences will help us develop those specific skills. And then we do have these like things that we are here to do. Yeah, that's like empowering, much more empowering than being like, we're going to be put to work to do something. It's like our job really, I feel, is to like figure out what it is that we've come here to do and then do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like kind of both intensely individual in a way, and then but because it's part of this whole just huge like mycelium network of connection with everything else.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the cog in the machine imagery is really interesting, because each cog is kind of under so much strain, and if that one cog, I'm not an engineer, so bear with me on this one, like if that one cog like fractures and breaks, then the whole thing falls apart. Whereas in something more organic, if one thing kind of dies back a little bit, like I think of the garden and like the things that grow and things that kind of die back a bit, and it's the flux of that things are able to withstand so much because everything is kind of interwoven, and so it's not all dependent on one thing. And so I think about like badly managed jobs that I've worked at, where it's like you phone in sick and the manager's just like, oh well, we're totally fucked. Then you go, well, that's a you problem, that's bad management. It shouldn't all be contingent on everyone being in the peak of health at all times, unless you are somehow able to support everyone being in the peak of health at all times.
Even then, like, it's seasonal, isn't it? Like we have seasons when we can do certain things and we can't, and like maybe that doesn't map exactly up to like the outer season. We shouldn't all be doing like working at this exact amount of output at the same, you know, like we were talking about earlier with that whole like, sometimes your output will be disproportionately massive, and then other times it will be disproportionately small. And having a system that allows for that, and linking in with what you said about being disabled, like the way that I see it, and like, yes, I definitely do still have internalized ableism about some of this stuff, is like it is a disability, but the only reason it's a disability is because of the way that the world is kind of currently set up. Whereas I don't think it's like inherently a disability. I feel like it is a difference. But yes, it is absolutely experienced as a disability by people who are trying to operate in a neurotypical world.
Yeah, I think that kind of social model it fits a lot of people's experiences. Although I think that there are aspects where it's like, even in the most kind of accessible and in tune society, there are still things that I would feel not able to do, and so would still be kind of disabled. But I absolutely agree that it would be a very different experience of disability if the world was somehow just less, I don't know, capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal, all of the stuff. And the thing is also, we don't know what it would be like yet. In time, hopefully, we will get more of a sense of what that could look like, but we don't know yet. And so, as it stands,
I just suppose I feel like, because it, like, I don't feel like it can be wrong that people feel like this. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's a reason why, and like some people will say it's because of all sorts of kind of things, isn't it? You know, like all sorts of conspiracy theories about why there's more autism now and all this kind of stuff. Like there's a whole thing. But like I feel like it's just something that has always been the case in a certain percentage of the population, and that in societies where that was like recognized, it's really hard to be a witch now, because that's not a job.
Yeah.
I've kind of made it a job for me, you know, like obviously lots of us, you know, have done that and been able to kind of do that. And I think that probably would have been, maybe not witch, but like in whatever, because there are skills, like we have skills that neurotypical people don't have. And so I just feel like there's a reason for it. And so I feel like in my like utopic vision of the world, then it would be even, because like you're still going to get sensory overwhelm and things like that on you, you know, so you're going to need to be able to rest or not do certain, like you shouldn't have to do all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could work. That could work because other people will do some of those things, and like you'll do the things that they can't do. Like you were saying before, like being a team with people, it's makes people be working together much more and takes away from that whole individual thing, isn't it? It's like rather than me as a rugged individual who can do all of these things myself and I don't need any help from anyone. And yeah, it kind of enables, I was going to say forces, but it's more like enables, facilitates working with other people as just a natural, normal thing to do.
Absolutely. I think that helps.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, like, for me, also that helps me with motivation. So, like, if I'm having to do everything for myself, we're really relying on me every single day caring enough about kind of like myself, essentially. Whereas if I'm doing stuff for my team, you know, my family, my unit, my community, my friends, I'm so much more inclined to do stuff. And I don't think I'm alone in that. And I don't think that's some like terrible confession of like mental ill health to just be like, sometimes if it's just down to me and I'm the only person that, you know, will have to deal with it if it doesn't get done, that's not enough. And so it's, yeah, the teamwork and the community thing is, I find myself being so much more inclined to do stuff if other people will benefit from it.
Yeah.
And like, that's what pushed me through like a lot of like therapy and stuff. Was I was just like, well, hopefully it means that I won't perpetuate stuff out onto other people, but also it means that if I can gather all of these tools while I'm in this position of being able to be in therapy and stuff, then every person I ever meet for the rest of my life will be able to benefit from me maybe being able to be like, here is a possibility, here is a screwdriver, here is a... Oh, and that was the other thing of the rugged individualism, is I used to live in a place where we had these tiny postage stamp little gardens, and like 5 people on my row of like 7 houses had lawnmowers. And I just thought that that was the most absurd indictment of the society that we live in. These houses did not have garages, they didn't have sheds. Everyone had to find a place to put their lawnmower. 1 lawnmower per street, guys, come on. It makes no sense. Because then everyone had to pay for it, and everyone had to store it, and everyone had to be generally inconvenienced by it, because how often do you need to, you know, mow a lawn that's like this big, do it with a pair of scissors? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Because it's uncomfortable, isn't it, to have to interact with people, and I'd probably be even more uncomfortable having to interact with other people. But I think that's part of learning about being human, is to kind of get past that discomfort and figure out ways of interacting with other people who have their own minds and do things that we think are crazy.
Yeah. And it's something like, I think most people find it a bit uncomfortable. And so knowing that you're meeting people where they're at as well, and like, so kind of we're both finding this a bit awkward, but if we can get past this, then it will be easier. And also I always fall back on, there is a thing called the liking gap, which is where people tend to like you more than you think they do. And I lean on that all the time. So I'm just like, they're probably fine with this, and if they're not, they can tell me, and I'm not going to imagine it unless they say something. And that is the thing that kind of helps me try and do these little uncomfortable social interactions, like talking to my neighbours and things.
Yeah. It's practice, isn't it? And also like I find like that whole, and that is masking, I suppose, like script, like having a pre-prepared thing that I can say.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've done the same thing like every Monday for a month that involves me phoning in the morning to check in if the person that I need to see is there, and I still have the same little script that I use every single Monday, that I phone up and I'm like, hello, I am this person. I would like to ask if this person is in today. And then like, yeah, Imogen, we know it's you. Still going to my script. This is what I need.
Yeah. And that's the brilliant thing I think about having the diagnosis, is that you allow yourself to have those things like that without thinking I shouldn't have to, because that's what was the most painful for me, is like, I shouldn't need this. I shouldn't need that accommodation. I should be able to do this without it being really stressful, you know, and then actually, because like I now and again I'll be like, but I'm not autistic enough, you know, to like part of that community. And then yeah, but it did really help to sort of have that kind of validated in a way. It's like, yeah, you do find it harder. I say to my son, it's like playing, because like he loves video games. He's like obsessed with video games, and it's like you're just playing it on a harder mode than other people. You're playing it like a boss level mode, you know, and that's
Yeah.
life on boss level. Yeah.
Autism hard mode, when you have to make a phone call to someone or have to wait for a phone call from someone and you just can't do anything for the whole day. And you're just like, great, this is a good use of my one wild and precious life. It's me just sitting here waiting for a doctor's phone call for 3 hours, not able to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so grateful to be able to talk to people about this kind of stuff and people just being like, yeah. But yeah, one of the things that I did want to ask you about was your experience of like intuition, and how do you feel like your neurodivergence kind of interplays with that? And do you...
Yeah, it's like, for me, like my intuition is just like my inner voice, I suppose. Like sometimes I think people say they don't have intuition, maybe because they're not. It's so hard, isn't it? Because it's everyone's like internal experience. It's really hard to kind of explain it because you don't know how everyone else is experiencing it. But for me, like, I feel like my intuition is just, it's not like this kind of like mystical thing. It's just like a normal thing. It's like, this is going to happen now, or this, you know, like I suppose when I did train to do like massage and bodywork and reflexology and things. And when I would do treatments with people, I'd get like information, I suppose, like downloads for those people. And it was always like a bit awkward because that's not the setup where you're supposed to be like, oh, this, you know, so, which is why tarot is so much better, because like that is the setup for that.
That's the agreement, isn't it?
Yeah. But it doesn't, like, I would hear it. So I suppose like it goes into like the whole clear thing, like it just sounds like, or I'll see something like as if it's literally physically there in front of me, or feel something or smell something sometimes as well, well, quite often. And as a child, I didn't know that not everyone does that. So like, because your experience is just your experience, isn't it? You just think, well, this must be what everybody is. I remember like when I was in primary school and we were like drawing pictures, and I was drawing pictures of people and I was like putting their aura colors around them, and the teacher was like, what are you doing? You're just putting all these like colors around people. That's not like, that's all out of the lines, and that's not how it's supposed to be. And I was just like, holy shit, it's not everyone's, you know. And so I was like, right, from now on, note to self, never do that around, you know, around
people, talk to people about it.
Like, yeah. So it's like, I've just got to edit that out. And it's only been through like other people feeding back to me, that's not right, that I've learned like, oh, okay, that shouldn't be happening, or that shouldn't be happening. So it's really hard to like separate that from the neurodivergence, because like to me, I felt like I was weird because of the intuition, you know, like because I was getting this stuff. Whereas I didn't know, like, when I was a child, like no one had diagnoses for anything, you know, like there were maybe some, I don't think they were, like they would literally just be like, they're naughty kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
There wasn't any, like in the 80s in primary school, there was like no diagnosis really for anything.
Well, they probably wouldn't have been allowed in mainstream schooling, in fairness. So they probably would have been kids in your area, but you wouldn't have come into contact with them.
Yeah, but like looking back now, you sort of think of some kids in the class and think that yes, they would have probably had a diagnosis. You know, and like dyslexia and things like that. Even that, it was like you're just being stupid, or you just need to practice, or you know, you're just not trying hard enough.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so like it is really hard to kind of separate it out from that, because it's just been part of my life experience from the very beginning, that it's like it's just part of life. It's like this. And I think like I've trained myself to tune it out to a certain like degree, especially like during my 20s. Like I drank a lot during my 20s because it was just like the world's so confusing and I'm not allowed to be who I am. So I'm just going to have to try and get through it somehow. And so I tried to like dial down all of that stuff, but it's been so much better since I've just been like allowing it and just be like, that is just my experience of the world. And perhaps it does feed in, I suppose, to like, maybe I am picking up on, I think it's just an extension of the sensory stuff. So it's like, you know, like you kind of almost like a litmus, aren't you? Like you're going into these places, it's like, shh, shh, you know, picking up all this stuff every time you like just live.
Yeah.
So, so like maybe it is picking up on those kind of things. Like quite often, if I've been like with somebody and then I'll like dream something and they won't have told me about it, but I'll dream something that is relevant to their life. And then afterwards they'll say, and it's like, oh yeah, that was that, you know. And so did I somehow pick up on that from being with them? And I've like, you know, like they've told me it, but not told me it in like in a verbal way, but somehow they pass that on, which is funny when you think of like how hard it is to like read people. In my assessment, she was saying like, can you read faces of people? Like, how well do you read faces? I was like, oh, yeah, you know, I can do that. And she's like, okay, so I'm going to make some facial expressions and I want you to like tell me what they are. And so she was like doing some and she's like, so, you know, and I was like, okay, that's like bored or fed up. And she was going through a few and she's like, right, what about these? And she was literally just like virtually not moving her face at all. And she's like, okay. So you can read facial expressions if they're exaggerated facial expressions, but not Neon's facial expressions. So it's like I've probably been like completely boring people lots of times when I've been talking to them, but I'm not picking up on those like more subtle like facial expressions. So it's like I feel like almost maybe I'm not getting that and like maybe the body language stuff, but somehow I'm getting like from behind that somehow like other stuff, or maybe I just can't take all of it in all in one go.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's exhausting. So tiring. Taking in all of that information all of the time. And yeah, that's really interesting. I had a book that I was like really obsessed with when I was like well, I probably wasn't even a teenager yet, but it was to do with, I think someone had preemptively bought me a book about teenage mental health. And this is like before it was really a conversation, but they, you know, the writing was on the wall apparently. But it was about like teenage brain development, not being able to gauge emotions correctly. And so a teenager with like a developing brain might see their parent and the facial expression of the parent is concern, but they will see anger or disgust or something. And I remember being really fascinated by that. Cut to many years later, we understand why I was so fascinated at the idea that you could tell that kind of information and that you could get it wrong and that your brain, but then also it's like, so there's the autistic pattern recognition, which I think plays well with intuition because it's, someone might not have said something verbally to you, but you've put together all of the information that you know about this person. And so you can kind of do a little bit of, it's not quite like precognition, but it's like, given all of this data, this is probably what's going to happen. But then also I think because so many of us are in some way, shape or form kind of traumatized, there's like the hypervigilance thing of where our brain really wants us to take in all of the information and cannot manage with not. And so we kind of get exhausted, but it's like all of it, all of the time, because we don't know what's a threat. And so I think there's like that combination of those two things on top of if you are extra kind of sensory and kind of have those additional kind of perceptions and things, like it's just, it, like you say, it's a really hard thing to really put into words or to quantify and to kind of separate out. So I was thinking about like the Claire kind of cognizance, Claire knowing thing. For me, it feels like information has dropped from the sky into my brain, whereas my sense of my intuition comes more from kind of my gut, which is probably social conditioning from phrases like gut instinct, but it's like it feels like it comes from within me rather than kind of pop. And so, but I just like knowing about other people's either like bodily experiences of that, or like you say about kind of being a child being told like, no, you're colouring outside the lines for drawing what you're seeing, and then you're definitely not alone in the kind of self-medicating situation of like, it was definitely like my middle to late teens and early 20s was very just, I'm trying to shave the edges off everything to make it more manageable. And it's because it is a lot. It's just a lot to be taking in all the time. And learning how to filter that is kind of challenging.
That's it, is the filtering. Because and I think as a child, when I didn't know that the hypervigilance for me comes around protection for myself. So it's like, am I being weird in this situation? Have I looked at this person in the right way for the right correct amount of time and now I should look away? And like, am I like being too loud or am I being too quiet? You know, like all of that kind of stuff. When I started, I didn't know about all that as a child. And so it was quite easy to just receive and just be kind of like, okay, because I wasn't thinking about what I'm doing, like back to them. And I think it was only when then, like into my teens, when I was like, oh, I need to not, am I looking weird now? You know, like, am I doing a weird facial expression or am I showing that I'm interested? And I would read like all the books and stuff about how to like have the right expressions and the like body language stuff and all that kind of thing. So it's like, so I'm not going to be like sticking out as this strange person. But if I can not worry about myself so much in the situation, I don't find it as overwhelming to just be like, you know, I'll just be open to taking that in. But also, like, no one teaches you about how to like ground and like how to close down your energy fields and do all that kind of stuff as well. Like, that's just not, I had to like learn that myself the hard way kind of thing. I was lucky that when I was in university, they had like an insight society there, which was like for like it was all kinds of weird stuff really, but it was really cool. It was really fun. We'd have like maybe like a psychic come and do a talk, or like it was different every week, you know, there'd be somebody come and do like a presentation or a talk or something, and then we'd have a go at something, you know, and it was really, and like one of those was about then like kind of grounding and stuff, which I'd read about before that because I'd gone down the kind of like Wicca path and had a look at some of that stuff, but it was different having it like shown rather than just like reading about it from a book. Like, what is that supposed to feel like? And seeing like other people then be like, you know, like trying to, like one of the things was like sensing people's auras. Like people would be sitting down and then people would be like trying to feel the edges of their auras, and like it's really funny then if you can see them, because it's like people are just like okay, but it helps you to realize like, oh, I can do this thing, I can't do this thing, you know. And it helped me to understand that and to be like learning the skills I needed to be able to protect myself, so I'm not just going into situations like fully open all the time, just like come and like just give me all this information. It's like and I suppose it is different, like my intuition maybe is more like my own safety, and maybe that does like bubble up from within more, and then like downloads do just kind of literally come from down. It's funny, like I'm trying to do more of that like somatic stuff of like feeling it. Where do I feel that in my body? Because that's really hard.
So hard.
Noticing all that stuff, like where I've been working with a therapist now who's actually been good, because I've tried before and like not had good experiences with therapists, but I've been working with one now for like nearly a year, and she's really good at like being like, how are you feeling, like, and what is your body doing right now, you know, like while you're in the middle of doing something, you know. And I'm just like, oh yeah, my body.
Oh yeah, I have one of those.
So like having that reminder is helpful. I think it's just because it is, like you say, an overwhelming amount of information, of input. Otherwise that's it, isn't it? It's like we're taking in all this input, and for me it also really helps to have like an output as well. Like, so be creating something. That's probably why I've like been journaling always, you know, like since I've been like 10, 11 years old, I've like journaled to try and move that stuff through so that it's not stuck. Like I kind of knew that I needed to do that, but having like an output or creating things or doing something with that information. Sometimes that's just speaking to you, like telling somebody it. Like that's why tarot readings are great. Like people say, do you get tired like doing tarot readings? Like no, I can do like 8 tarot readings easily back to back in like it's weird sometimes, like if you're in like a show, you know, like a kind of metaphysical show kind of environment, just because of all of the stuff in there. Like, you know, there's a lot of strange people in there anyway, and then you're like doing the tarot reading. That can be a lot, but it's more the hypervigilance of the other people then, rather than the process of the tarot reading itself.
And trying to modulate your voice so that you're not sharing someone's deepest, darkest out to the other side of the room as well.
Yes.
That's a big issue for me. Because I
like stand, won't they? Like by the end of the table, it's like, we're in the middle of doing a reading here now. Like, you're gonna
we're talking about some really like, you know, what this person's life path, bish bash bosh kind of
along. Like,
exactly. There's a cue. No, I feel that about the like the sensory kind of onslaught of it. And like my therapist considers autism kind of primarily sort of a sensory condition, and just that I think particularly when she met me, it was like I was just moving through the world as a raw exposed nerve and just kind of taking on everything and kind of being quite like, I suppose, vulnerable to damage. Essentially, it was just like the okay, A-level biology is coming back to me immediately, but like the little kind of like fatty sheath that is supposed to protect the nerve was just gone. And so I was just out here like perpetually overwhelmed, overstimulated, and so I think the remembering that you have a body and that your body can help you process that through like movement and creative pursuits and stuff like that is that's I think one of my lifelong kind of challenges, to remember that I have a physical form and to not just be irritated by that and being like, oh, I need to pee again, what is this? But the image that came into my head when you were talking about other people trying to feel auras while you can see them was like when you see those photos of all the people by the Leaning Tower of Pisa doing the photo, but you have the picture of all of them, and so it just looks like they're like touching nothing. And so I could just imagine you being like, well, obviously it's like here, and there's people being like, ugh.
Yeah, even maybe it's not the same for everyone as well. Like I was thinking perhaps they're seeing something different from me then, like it's wild, isn't it? Like the whole just not knowing what other people are like thinking and what they're actually experiencing is just, But I feel like everyone should have those kind of practices of being able to like ground center. And I think that would help people with, all kinds of people to be able to like be in their bodies a little bit more and process things, because it's not just neurodivergent people, I think, who struggle with that as well, like some sensitive people, other sensitive people as well. But it would be great if the world was set up like that, and that is one of the things like I'm hoping I can give for my children as well, as like kind of letting them know about stuff like that. And also like it's the whole kind of stereotype stuff of like being in a place that allows you to do that as well, like since having Frodo, and like I make sure I go out every single day now and walk, and that is just like you can just feel it all just like streaming off me into the earth, and it's just like, oh, it's so nice. People feel that, don't they? Like even if they don't see it, they have that experience of like, I feel much better now after doing it.
And but things aren't very kind of, there's not a lot of like joined up thinking about that, because I think that largely we're kind of sort of like disincentivized to connect to our bodies because of jobs. And I think about like even kids in school, so like, no, you need to go to the bathroom at like break and lunchtime. You can't listen to your and like you can't listen to your body, and so it starts so young. And like I remember like for my whole time in education, I like never peed at school because school bathrooms were disgusting. And I think about like, it's a fucking miracle I didn't give myself like a kidney condition or something. But the knock-on effect that autism are kind of almost notwithstanding, the disconnect from me and my body is something I'm still trying to like piece back together from all of those years, and then going to work and all of that kind of stuff of not being able to, and like really being encouraged to totally disconnect from your body and how things feel, and that the scientific and the rational and the mental is all so prized. And like, there's so many people that sort of believe that if you have an argument, then like the first person to cry is the person who lost the argument or something, because you got too emotional. And you just go, fucking humans. Like, maybe you're not being emotional enough, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think that's why like that connection with the divine feminine for me has been so healing, because I think especially as like a neurodivergent person who's trying to like get on in the world, we like very quickly clock like this is how we're supposed to be. And so it's even more, I could get even more rigid about like trying to be like what you're supposed to be like. And so it's like, it takes you even more into that like kind of like patriarchal kind of mindset of like doing things, and it's the brain, and like, yes, I'm not like, if you're going to be a good cog, then you don't worry about your body, because it's just, the kind of function of what it is you're here to do. Like your output is the only thing that is important, and like the output should serve the kind of machine rather than it being about you. And then when I started like working with Divine Feminine with Goddess, it was just like, Oh, that has helped me so much to get more embodied and to be more able to receive input and also let go, like to do that grounding and let go of things as well. It's been absolutely transformational, just having that other option of it's just like flicking the switch, isn't it? It's like rather than being like on output, it's like now I'm like gathering, and like that's kind of my natural way anyway. And so I was like going right against what my natural way of being in the world is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it just opened up a whole world of like, it's okay. This is not the way we're doing it is wrong. I think that's when I realized that it's not me that's wrong. It's
Yeah.
the way that we're doing it that's wrong. And that was like, oh, thank fuck.
Yeah.
I kind of knew that really, but just realizing like that other people also think that as well. And like this whole body of evidence around that as well. If you want to kind of get more like kind of evidence based into it as well, it's like, thank fuck for that, because now I am not wrong. I'm right. And the world is just the world.
Yeah.
Which like some people don't find that very comforting, but I find that really comforting because it's like, no, we've got options of the way that we can be and we can express. And yes, sometimes being that more like out pushing energy is appropriate, but it's become all that. And so we need to almost like have a big pushback against that and be more embodied. So for me, it's also like kind of a radical act to be like embodied and try and like
Absolutely.
look at my body and like do nice sensory things for myself as well. Like, like having a bath, or I like to massage my feet. And I just feel like it helps me so much to do those kind of like really simple, but just feels disproportionately amazing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the way that things have been going for the last, I don't know what, like 150 years or whatever, for everything to always be growing and expanding and extracting is so deeply unsustainable on every single level. And I think that the work that you do, I mean, it's been transformative for me, even just what you put out on like YouTube and stuff in terms of being able to connect with that kind of thing, because I think I might have said this to you before in a comment or whatever before, but it's I have like gender shit with kind of womanhood and girlhood and what that felt like, and about how that always felt like such a kind of a yoke around my neck and like a weight and a heaviness, and interacting with a lot of stuff out there about like divine feminine always just interacted with that in a way that didn't feel comfortable at all, and that I felt very kind of reflexively like, not for me. Maybe for somebody else, but not for me. But the way that you talk about things I'm gonna get weepy. This is embarrassing. But like it was so huge for me to hear someone talk about these things in a way that felt welcoming to me, and that it didn't feel like you were trying to box anyone in or exclude anyone, or kind of it was this much more kind of like lateral thing rather than the hierarchical thing, which makes so much sense given the truth of it. But still, you see a lot of people that it's this, this is how you woman, and this is how you, and that was always the bit that I was just like, well, I can't do that. And so I would see, from a really young age, I would see kind of women and girls, and I'd be like, well, I'm not that, so I must not be, I'm a traitor to my whatever, my body is a traitor to me. It's a whole fucking mess. Yeah. And then I saw the kind of the space that you created, and I was just like, oh, I can rest now. I can enjoy this. I can feel this and not feel like anyone's going to be, I don't know, no one's going to like kick me out or have a go at me or like get really, I don't know, kind of invasive about stuff. And it's just, I don't know, so I really appreciate what you do and the way that you do it.
Yeah, thank you. And it's, because there's been quite a bit of divine feminine stuff put out, and some of it is really helpful, I think, and really good, and then some of it is coming still from within patriarchy, and like we can't help that because we are living in patriarchy, but it's still like almost like reinforcing those like gender stereotypes, especially like all the stuff around motherhood is so weird, because it's like, it is just so weird, because it's like, yes, we can mother, and that does mean something different than fathering, and there's like a whole thing around it. But I think, like for me, felt more masculine, especially as a child, because it's like, that's the right way, you know? It's like, that's the way
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do things. And I remember reading about how some people have got like a 3 chromosome, so they've got like a double X, but also a Y. And I was like, I
Yeah.
bet I got that.
Wow.
And being like, yes,
Gosh.
because
Yeah.
I so much like shifted myself into that mindset of like, this is the way that I'm supposed to be to show up kind of thing. And yeah, for me, it was so transformational because it's not about like it is about your physical body, but not about your physical body being a specific type of physical body. It's just
Yeah.
about the experience of physicality in general and like what it means to be embodied and to be living manifest, like a human manifest existence, and how that is different from being kind of like all up in your head all the time and being, yeah, I think it definitely like it feeds back into that whole individuality versus like
Yeah.
communality kind of thing, because it's just, that's the tension. It's not so much between like male and female or masculine, feminine. It's that it's a whole different way, like you say, more lateral way of understanding the world as being, well, more democratic, as in like a more people based in general. But yeah, it's not a top down way of seeing
Yeah.
things. It's a circle way of seeing things. And yeah, for me, like learning about that is just like, yes, it makes so much sense. And there's lots of different people doing it in different ways. I'm really grateful because hopefully people will find like the work that makes sense to them. But yeah, for me, it's been absolutely transformational.
Yeah, it's so beautiful and powerful. And like you said, I think some of the friction that I had around it was that I kind of thought that we'd been fighting to not be a kind of defined by either our anatomy or like our ability to produce children. And so the idea that that was kind of the cornerstone of everything, I was just like, well, that's not, I kind of, certainly not for now, I can't interact with that because that feels so similar to all of this other shit that I've had to deal with like my whole life. And so no, thank you. I'm all right. I'll leave you to that. If that works for you, then great. But like, I'll leave you to that. But yeah, exactly the way the circular, and I've heard some people talk about it in terms of like spiralic
Yeah.
way of existing, and that it sits so comfortably with the way that I see the world, but also in a way that is still expansive. And so it's not just kind of like echo chamber with like the way I see the world, but it's always kind of broadening my experience of things to hear the way that you talk about stuff, whether that's like astrology or divine feminine or goddess or and like kind of the community of people and different experiences and stuff is just it's huge. And I think I used to feel the same way, not quite to the level of the chromosome thing. I think that's really impressive. That's very cool. But like so I know that the old thing about autism was like the extreme male brain, which obviously is bollocks and has all been like debunked and stuff. But before I heard any of that, that was how I used to think of myself, was that I was like so rational, so scientific, and I really prided myself on it. And I was so disconnected from everything. I was so just like I couldn't feel anything at all. And like that was a trauma response, it was a whole bunch of things, but I was proud of it. And I just feel so sorry for like little kind of teenage Imogen that was so pleased to be like one of the boys in that kind of like I never cry, and like I still don't cry an awful lot, and I sort of feel a bit weird about that. And you know, that's still not great because it's like I shouldn't be shaming my body for however it needs to react to stuff. But I was so like, you know, people died, terrible things happened, and I was like, I still didn't cry. Yeah, so cool. Just what's wrong with you? But the patriarchal kind of dogma is so strong that it's good to not be emotional. You don't want to be, essentially, it's like not like one of those girls.
Yeah.
Not like other girls kind of thing. And so to be able to settle into being like, girls are fucking great, women are amazing, humans are capable of great harm, but also absolutely wondrous, amazing stuff. And yeah, I think it's huge, the work that you do. And it's just very cool.
Internalized misogyny is so strong, isn't it? It's really, I can remember like when I was like a young teenager, we used to go on holidays with another family that had 2 boys, like similar ages to me and my sister. And when we'd like play games with them, you know, like, and also with our parents sometimes. So like we used to play like a game called like Bool, where you like throw a little ball and then you throw the bigger balls to try and see who can get closest. And like if we beat them, especially if I did well in that, the dad of the boy would be like, oh, beaten by a girl kind of thing. And then even I would be like, ha, beaten by a girl, like what them. And it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, like thinking back on that now, it's like I was so, like you say, trying to be so rational, so like just the most rational, scientific. But I think I was just lucky that my lived experience was so different from that. And then it's like I can't, like I'm just living this awful like lie, you know, like I know a lot of people feel like that when they're autistic as well, like especially if they're masking a lot as a teenagers. Like I feel like I'm such a liar in all of my life because I'm not like, nobody really knows me and I'm just kind of playing along with a lot of this stuff. And yeah, I think that contradiction of like, this is me. I'm very rational. I always back up my arguments with my points, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And then, but I'm also feeling all this stuff and I'm also receiving all this information. And like, how the hell does that work, you know? Yeah. It's just, it's wrong how we're living. And it's not that like thinking about it as being like a spiral, definitely. And then, but it is also linear, like the world as well. It's like we've got this linear and we've also got the spiral and they're both true, you know. It's like, yeah, but we've just gone so far on that like progress. It's like we start here, we end up here, you know. It's like we're on this just perpetual progress. Yeah, you know, everything's going to get better and better. The future's got all these solutions to all the problems. Like clearly it doesn't, because we've just really making a big mess of things at the moment, and we need to be checking that and bringing that back to like what is actually happening, like the truth of what is happening. It's the physicality of it as well, isn't it? That's what makes it so easy for people to do, to like extract from the earth, because that's what patriarchy is, isn't it? It's like the body, especially like the nurturing body, is seen as something that is just literally for extraction from, you know, for exploitation. We exploit this. And yeah, so for me, like reclaiming that whole idea of like womb and like womb space as a creative space has been really powerful. But then I also like understand that is also really difficult for some people as well. So it's like, it's not perfect, but it definitely like has really helped me to understand the world in a different way.
Yeah, I think, the thing about being a liar as well, and but existing like that, but also the deep fear of being misunderstood. And so it's so, I think, understandable for us to all just kind of retreat inside ourselves until we're kind of not inside ourselves, like to our edges, which is what I talk about feeling now, is that I feel like I feel myself out to my edges, because I feel like I was sort of like, I don't know, about this big, living somewhere in my chest or kind of somewhere in my throat for, 20 years or whatever. And so it's that retreat and stuff. And so, so being able to live the embodiment, to fully kind of inhabit yourself, I think is huge. And like I appreciate what you say about the womb space thing, but I think even just like the kind of metaphorical capacity, so within ourselves, that we have these kind of, regardless of anatomy, these kind of chambers that are capable of holding energy and holding, hope and joy and compassion and hippy dippy woo, yay, and all of that lovely stuff. And I think that it's huge to be able to exist in that. And I appreciate the tension that you must have felt between the drive to be so kind of hyper rational, but then also that being quite at odds with your lived experience. Because I think I just dissociated through most of my, like, I wasn't really there. I was all here some of the time. So the idea that you had those two things at once, that must have been.
But I think that's like my 20s was very much like that. I felt like I just dissociated a lot, and just like that retreating, when you're saying that, it's like, yes, retreating into that throat and clothes in the throat as well. It's like I'm not, like, because I felt like you're saying, being misunderstood, or there's something wrong with me. There's something deeply wrong with me, and I don't know what that is. Yeah, it is really hard. And I think that is it. Then you retreat, and like for me, it was like trying to pretend that things weren't happening. So doing things like drinking alcohol, getting into unsafe situations and things like that, because it's like my physical body didn't even feel like it was mine. It was just going through the world, kind of doing the motions.
Yeah, exactly that. I relate to that a lot. And so kind of coming it's that sort of coming home, coming back to yourself thing that is just massive. Yeah, the way that you put things out, that's what it feels like, I think. Well, certainly to me as kind of a consumer of your content, as it were. Yeah, I think that kind of coming home.
That's so powerful,
huge.
being with that, just letting somebody know that they even can, though, like it is even possible to come home. Because I think, like, during my 20s, I would not have thought that was the case. You know, like, it's like, I'm just gonna have to live my life like this now.
That's how I felt when I got my diagnosis. I got my diagnosis about a month before my 21st birthday. And I'd known it was coming because I got mine on the NHS, so it took like 3 years. And I was, textbook, whatever, in so many ways. And I got my diagnosis and I thought it was going to be a huge relief. And actually how it landed was, fuck me, this is forever. There's no pill, there's no therapy, there's no nothing. This is it. For as long as I'm on the planet, this is what it's going to be like. And that fell like a stone into my gut. In some ways, like I get flickers of that every now and again, but more out of frustration of just like, well, gee, fuck me, all right, this is. But I don't. It's settled much more as a kind of, it's who I am, rather than that this is a weight on me. But that grief of, I can't fix this, no one can fix this, was huge. And so yeah, I get what you mean about that. Not knowing that, not being able to visualize really that things could get better or easier is something really particular about that kind of age as well, like being a teenager and early 20s and stuff, is that things kind of feel that you can't necessarily picture that things could ever be different, because I suppose, the media and stuff, like particularly for people that inhabit kind of femme-presenting bodies and stuff, like we're not really shown women after the age of like 25. So we don't know what that looks like.
Prime, isn't it? It's like you should be at the top of your game now, kind of thing, and it's never going to be better than this. And it's like, if you're having an awful experience, then it's like, really? What is the point then? It's just. Yeah, I think for me, it was very much like feeling like there was something wrong. And so for me, like having the diagnosis later and being like, yes, okay, I want to pursue diagnosis. I wasn't sure if I was going to, first of all, and then I did. And being able to receive it as like, yes, this is different, but it doesn't mean there's something wrong with me, even though obviously the diagnosis process is basically proving that there is something.
Oh, yeah. Tell me all the ways in which you're broken. Tick, 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 points.
Crap at this, can't do this.
It's really great, really empowering.
And it was kind of a little bit of an anticlimax afterwards then as well, because still up till then I'd sort of thought maybe I'm not, and even still now, like it's like I'll get a little, but maybe I'm just maybe I'm just lying about this as well, maybe I've just masked my way through the diagnosis and got them to say that, even though that wasn't actually the case. No,
just being a big drama queen and actually everything's fine and I just need to get my shit together.
I just want there to be something wrong with me.
Oh, like all of the fun. Actually, I saw it on TikTok, and now that's why I'm autistic, is because I saw it on TikTok. And because all of these kids on TikTok say that they're autistic, so that's me now. I had someone say that to me once, and I was just like, I was like this before TikTok existed. And also, people have been like this since, you were saying from your early 40s, like we existed before, like, the internet. Like, won't tell my 21-year-old brother, I won't bring that up, because I'll get another, like, 80th birthday card or something, but it's, like, we existed before, and it's,
It's so weird, people say, like, it's trendy. It's like, what about trendy? It's like, it's the most untrendy diagnosis ever, really, because it's like no one can tell from looking at you necessarily. Or they kind of can, but they also kind of can't. And so it's that whole awkward like thing. But then it's like, why would you want to claim that if that wasn't actually the case? I just find it so weird, the whole thing about it.
Yeah, and it's so like being autistic would have got you bullied at school, and so I think that anything that would have got you bullied at school generally can't be trendy. Which I thought, up until those really, really ugly fleeces came back into fashion, that I was just like, I would have been hung out to dry if I'd worn that at school. And now, like, all the cool kids are wearing them. So, maybe it's just like an ugly fleece. maybe it's cool to be weird now. And, I hope that's true, because that would mean that people wouldn't get bullied for it. And unfortunately, I don't think that is true, because you still see people throwing it around like a slur online to just tell people that they're being odd, or, mocking people for doing things that are typically autistic. And you go, so it's what social cachet? Like, people are just like, oh, you're doing it for the clout. And you're like, oh yeah, there's the social power that comes from being autistic.
Or people like trying to be well-meaning, saying you can't possibly be, It's like, but you're so like, able
So
to
what?
function. You can't possibly be. Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, okay. But you're just seeing this part of this situation now. And yeah, I think people's understanding of what it actually means is very, very odd.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's them that has a very limited view of it, than that we aren't. Because if you knew anything about it, then it would be like, well, obviously we are. I had a therapist who once was like, oh, what, like Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory? And I was like, oh, okay, so we're going back to first principles, are we? Yeah, this is either I never bring it up ever again, or I'm going to have to explain that that's not an okay thing to say to someone.
Yeah.
Because that's an actor.
Yeah.
And the actor is not autistic. But yeah. Oh, this has been an absolute delight. I didn't talk to you an awful lot, but this has been fantastic. Either way, yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been a real treat.
It's been really fun to have a chat about all this stuff, because yeah, like you said, you don't get much opportunity. Yeah, thank you. And I've watched the other interviews now as well.
Oh, did you?
Really cool as well. Yeah, I haven't gone through all of them yet, but I watched like 3 of them.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, it's been fantastic to get to talk to people, and the fact that it's been people from like all over the place as well. Like this is a real treat, because I didn't need to worry about time differences. Whereas it's been like Canada, Australia, America, like it's different people with different experiences and different medical systems as well, of like and like kind of cultural backgrounds around stuff like mental health, disability. It's a lot of stuff. It's nice hearing different people's views and experiences.
Yeah, because like I don't always know sometimes, like you saying about things like, is this to do with tarot, or is this to do with neurodivergence, is this to do with intuition, like where's the intersection of all of those things? And so hearing how different people find it, like in therapy I find this as well, like she'll ask me questions, I'll be like, I don't know. And so it's really fun to hear other people's answers, and then it's like, that's like my experience of that as well, or my experience is different from that, but I kind of need the prompt, like the just to like know what to, rather than just be like, yeah. So yeah, it's a really cool series. Thank you for making it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that I think happens to quite a lot of people, particularly when they go up for diagnosis, is that autism becomes a special interest. So something that, if I can talk to other people about it, then that's just the dream, isn't it?
Yeah,
and also it seems to help.
Autistic. And then I started looking into it more, and then the more I was reading about it, I was like, oh, hang on.
Yeah, I think that's very, very normal.
Yeah. It can be easier seeing it in other people first, and then when you look into it more, be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, thanks so much, Imogen. It's been really fun.
It's been a pleasure to get to chat to you.
And that is a wrap. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much to my incredible guest, Jessica. Just wow. I mean, I think you probably heard it. I'm quite the fan, and it was such a joy to be able to talk with her about all of this lovely, juicy stuff. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're taking really good care of yourself, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.